right, that leads us into Hot Takes, brought to you by Harvey's, starring Bryan Hayes from Overdrive on TSN Radio or wherever you get your podcasts. Bryan, here's the thing. It obviously ended in the most heartbreaking way it possibly could end on Saturday night. But when you go back to the beginning of the season, the expectations for this team were so low that it just ended up being an incredible season-long ride that the Jays took this fan base on all the way to Game 7 of the World Series. My question for you is simply this. What do you think as time goes on we will remember? What will you remember? Will it be that long ride, that incredible ride that they took us on, or the heartbreak at the end?
I think it's likely for me going to be the heartbreak at the end because, you know, the heartbreak represents belief, right? Your heart doesn't get broken as a sports fan unless you're truly in love and unless you truly believe. And I think this team was very captivating this year, incredibly likable team. Like you mentioned, Jay, last year they won 74 games. No one had hopes for this. And then by the end of May, early to middle of June, you realized, okay, maybe they're going to be all right. By the middle of July, you thought, okay, they're actually really good. And then by the middle of August, you started thinking, what kind of damage could they do in the playoffs? So it was a slow build, and that just continued throughout the playoffs. But you can't get past the fact that they didn't win in the end. You know, you just showed the video of the Dodgers celebrating in L.A. That should have been in Toronto today, but it's not. Doesn't matter how well they played. It doesn't matter how close they got. That final chapter that was actually going to allow the next generation of Blue Jay fans to compare this win to what they've always heard about from 92 and 93. They didn't get it because it was that close, but they couldn't cross the line. And again, I think it's particularly excruciating how close it was, right? They're up 3-2 coming home. Game 6, bottom of the ninth. Barger gets doubled off. It happened so quickly you couldn't believe. You had to recalibrate. You get back in the building 24 hours later. They've got a 3-0 lead. They've got a 4-2 lead. They need 6 outs. They've got a 4-3 lead. They need 2 outs. Right? Vladdy's on third in the 11th inning. They can't get him home. It was so close. And I do think there's a generational divide here. And it might surprise you because I think the reputation would be the older you get, maybe the more jaded you get. But I don't think it applies here. I think if you're over the age of, let's say, 50 and you've been a Blue Jay fan your whole life, this probably is something you're going to look back on almost 100% positively because it was about nostalgia. It brought you back to 92, 93, and I think you'd really appreciate the fact that this group of players and this team allowed you to relive how great it would have been, you know, building up through the late 80s into the early 90s and then winning back-to-back World Series. I think it's the younger generation, like 45 and under, 40 and under, that this was their opportunity to match that. This was their opportunity to get to the finish line, to go to the parade, to buy the hats and the shirts and the hoodies that say 2025 champions. So I think it's actually a generational divide here. And yes, as the dust settles, legendary moments will never be forgotten. And these players will be beloved forever, right? Forever. But the fact of the matter is they didn't get it done. And that heartbreak, it sticks with you because you believed. Right? Like even the most eternal pessimist, the biggest hater out there in Game 6 and certainly at times in Game 7 thought to themselves, they're actually going to do it. They're going to win. And that's what stings. That feeling will never be forgotten, that you really, really believed they were about to win the World Series. And at the end of the day, it didn't happen.
Well said. We are waiting to hear from Mark Shapiro and Ross Atkins in the coming days. The biggest question surrounding the Blue Jays, of course, is the future of soon-to-be free agent Bo Bichette. And he was saying all the right things after the World Series was over in the immediate aftermath. But I guess my question for you is, Bryan, do you believe Bo Bichette will be a part of this team when we get to spring training?
Yes, I do, and it may be recency biased. It may be that I'm just caught up in the moment right now, Jay. I think this might be a question you have to ask me again in 2 or 3 weeks when the dust really settles, once we get to the winter meetings. But it just feels right that Bo Bichette continues to be a part of this team because he's still in his prime. You know, he's still in his late 20s. He had a phenomenal season this year. He had a great World Series off one leg. And yes, he's slowing down. And yes, there will be a debate as to what position he's going to play. And it's business in the end. As much as Bo loves Toronto and loves being a Blue Jay, he's going to want to get paid. And as much as Mark Shapiro and Ross Atkins may love Bo Bichette, they need to think about where they're going to allocate their money. But the money issue shouldn't be a problem here. Easy for me to say, but this ownership, I think it's imperative they take advantage of this positive wave and go all in and make sure you get things done. Look what happened with Vladdy Jr. this year. Them signing him allowed everyone to breathe. Right, allowed everyone to breathe throughout the season. I think it can be similar with Bo Bichette. You lose him in the clubhouse. You lose his presence. You lose his ability to supply offense and clutch offenses, which is what he did all year. That can have a negative impact on how the rest of the team and the fan base feels about where this is going. So unless they have some massive trick up their sleeve, unless they feel like they could sign, let's say, a guy like Kyle Tucker, who's the biggest free agent out there, left-handed bat, hits for power. If they feel like they can get Tucker and that's where the money's going to go, people can reason with that. But if you're not, then Bo Bichette, in my opinion, should be back as a Blue Jay. I think you find a way to make this work. I think he's got a long career ahead of him. Again, he's a big bat. The offense, who knows what it's going to look like in certain areas next year. I think you rely on Vladdy Guerrero Jr., Bo Bichette, Alejandro Kirk. I think, yeah, that's your three-pack. And obviously, George Springer was a big part of it this year. George is not a young guy. And he's not going to be playing the way he played this year for the next 3, 4, 5 years. He's got 1 year left on his deal. Gosman's money is coming off the book after next year. They actually have flexibility. Yes, there's focus on the amount of money that Vladdy's going to make, but they have flexibility into the future. And for me, I think Bo should be back. I would do everything I can to keep him, and I would allow this team to continue to grow with the likes of Bichette, with Vladdy, with Kirk, and I would go all in beyond that too. Not just about keeping Bichette, who you feel probably pretty good about being able to do that with. You got to keep going. If Scooble's available, go find a way to trade for him and pay him. If you can get Kyle Tucker, do it. Fill up your bullpen. This is your time because the Dodgers aren't going to slow down. The Yankees aren't going to slow down. The Mets are going to keep spending. The Blue Jays proved this year they can spend their way up to a certain point. They're in the dance. They lost in the 11th inning of Game 7 of the World Series. They're as close as you could possibly get. And I think this win not only helps pitch that to free agents, it should help Shapiro and Atkins pitch it to ownership. Look how close we are. Let's get crazy. Let's get crazy, and I would start with Bo Bichette. Get that done, have a feel-good story to start your offseason, and keep moving from there.
Baseball free agency notoriously moves way slower than the other sports, so this could be a multi-month discussion that we have with Bryan Hayes. Thursday, though, is when baseball free agency begins. This is Bryan Hayes. This has been Harvey's Hot Takes.
Hot Takes is presented by Harvey's. Things are heating up with Harvey's Buffalo Chicken lineup, including the Buffalo Chicken Sandwich, wrap, nuggets, or poutine for a whole lot of spicy, saucy flavor. Harvey's, it's a beautiful thing.